Taylor, you.
No, I'm going to start it. It's fine.
Okay, my bad.
Hello and welcome everyone to another live episode of the Culture Nerd Podcast. As explained on social media, we had an interview lined up. The interview backed out the last second and wanted to reschedule to next week, which gave us an opportunity to come live and talk to you all. I went to social media and said, "Hey everyone, what do you want me to talk about?" And unanimously, it seemed like out of all, I think it was 97 to 98% of all the responses all said, "I want you to talk about what you hope and dream and speculate for the DCU." So Michael and I are going to talk about the DCU, what we hope to see out of it, because we've talked a lot about the stuff as it's been coming, and we've mentioned little things here and there that we love, but let's just have a big episode where we just talk about what we want to see from the DCU. So it's going to be a live episode, so we encourage participation from the fans. Send questions, comments, emotional outbursts of any sort of irrational nature. Put them all in there, and we will talk as we go.
Coming to you live at 1080p streaming
on a brand new episode of
Behold my stuff.
What stuff do you have, Taylor?
I got that popcorn bucket. Ghostbusters. This thing is the greatest damn popcorn bucket. Like, look, it lights up and it lights up my popcorn. And I was like, this is the coolest thing ever. And then I could just take this thing out and clean it and I have a trap. And I'm like, this was one of the greatest purchases that I've had this year. I don't care.
Behold.
I hit it again. My bad. But behold, I am so happy with this popcorn bucket.
You know, they are going to be tracking all of those sales, and it feels like that movie theaters are becoming a toy store where now you go to get cool exclusive toys.
Yeah, honestly, I love the Ghostbusters popcorn bucket far better than that Dune popcorn bucket that everyone wanted to have sex with.
Yeah, that weird fleshlight one with popcorn in the middle of it. Yeah, that's a weird guy.
There were so many. I think there's even an SNL bit about that where they were like, "This is weird, guys." But I was actually watching people online saying, like, "How do we eat popcorn out of this?" Because it's got all those little teeth, and you're like, I grab a handful and I lose half the handful trying to get it out of the hole.
You have to protect it like Paul Moadib was protecting the people of Arrakis. You have to get in there and get it out.
Speaking of, did you watch Dune Part 2? Because I don't think we talked about it yet.
I have not seen Dune Part 2 yet.
What's wrong with you? Stop what you're doing.
Thank you very much. It's been a busy, hectic week for me. I heard it's coming to digital like in 4 days. Isn't it supposed to?
Is it?
I thought I saw that they were releasing it on digital within the next week and a half, and I was like, okay.
Well, when did you find that out? Because it was April Fool's Day yesterday, so the internet lies to a lot of people.
Taylor, I might have been lied to. I might have gotten lied to straight up by the internet. I just thought it made sense though because of the first movie's model. I feel like you get the people that want to see it, and then after that, they're trying to keep the hype going.
Okay. Hold on. I'm looking at it right now. According to Forbes, I don't care. Stop. It says disable your ad blocker. I don't want to. I'm going to keep blocking things from you.
Block it.
Block it. Okay. I don't know. It won't let me look at it. Forbes apparently is not letting me access their web thing.
It's crazy that Forbes is the place you go for up-to-news Hollywood information.
I just Googled Dune Part 2 streaming date, and the first thing that came up was Forbes.
Also, that Miyazaki movie is supposed to be streaming soon, and I'm waiting with bated breath for it to drop on Max. It is going to go to Max, but I don't know when.
Oh, it'll be able to rent as of today. So you can rent it.
Great. I'll rent it.
As you should. Wait. Okay, never mind. 6 hours ago, Warner Brothers is expected to release their Dune Part 2 video on demand today. However, it's still not here yet. What's going on?
Okay, great. Okay, great. That's what I figured. That's what I heard. And I can't believe that they're releasing it as soon as they are. I feel like the first movie set this movie up for huge success. I'm happy to know from the people I trust. I like the reviews. I like that one of the things I heard is that the pacing is a lot better in this. I think that they've done so much world building. Great. Just tell all the stories. Now do Children of Dune. Now do Dune Messiah. Now do God Emperor of Dune. Like, keep making them.
I really want them just to do the next one, just Dune Messiah, because that was actually like the first two parts is the story of how Paul Atreides became Space Hitler, and that was a fantastic story. I was actually talking to my dad about this because he loves the Dune books. He hated the movie, and I remember seeing the movie the first time at your house, which I can't remember. Did your dad like that movie, or did we just watch it out of like some?
No, the before I knew I liked David Lynch, we watched David Lynch's Dune all the time. My mother loves it. It's a Sandtel classic, and it's bonkers crazy.
It is. So this new movie, it followed a lot of the same beats, which was really good. It followed it correctly. That's the best way to put it. Followed it correctly. It did take out some things that I remember like being, oh, that's a bummer. That's not here. I left the movie wanting to watch a 5-hour cut of this movie.
Yeah.
I was like, this needs to be bigger. I think the director just needs to put Dune Part 1 and Part 2 into one super movie with all the deleted scenes and just give me 6 hours of Dune in one hit. I'll take it. I love the Lord of the Rings extended editions. Dune deserves that. So that being said, I was talking to my dad after this because he is a huge book fan and hated the David Lynch movie because he said it did it wrong, and a lot of the internet agrees. He did not realize that George Lucas based a lot of his Star Wars stuff off of Dune. And I basically was like, I'm like, Dad, did you not catch it? I mean, Paul Atreides is essentially Anakin Skywalker. And he's like, and he sat there and he's like, oh, he is. I'm like, yeah, he's the good guy who becomes a space Hitler. like Darth Vader.
Well, put up the spoiler thing. Because people, if you've not read the Dune books, these are things that you don't know. So I'm not here to ruin things for those people. But
I don't have the spoiler tag. Where did it go? Did we delete it? Did we delete it by mistake?
How did we get rid of it?
How did we delete it? What happened? Let me see if I have it in my files.
I was just going to say that in future books, we explore more of Paul's lineage, and we find out where Paul fails and where that lineage succeeds. So I feel like we've been stuck in Paul Muad'Dib world, which is great, but he's like, he fades into the background in future books, and there's so much more to the world for people to get into.
Yeah, because I like to point out the fact that in Children of Dune and everything beyond that, his son becomes the God Emperor of Dune, not Paul. Paul becomes like a bad guy, and the whole
Paul
idea
doesn't want to become the space Hitler. He sees the path he has to walk, and he's like, I can't do it.
Yeah, and so what was always interesting about Paul's characterization was, it was very much like the Anakin Luke Skywalker thing, where everyone assumed Luke was the chosen one, and so on. But with the way Frank Herbert wrote the books, it was the idea was that it was got like a stark commentary on the pitfalls of blindly following a Messiah-like figure and saying, oh, this is our savior, and then finding out the savior is not the good guy. And
addicted to drugs.
Yeah, he likes that spice. He
loves the spice.
Yeah. But Dune Part 2, absolutely fantastic. I cannot wait to see if they adapt Dune Messiah properly, because I think that movie is going to just blow people's mind holes even harder, because that book went way harder than it should have, especially for the 60s.
Yeah, and it's funny that you talked about it in comparison to Lord of the Rings. I don't know if we live in a world where they would, they barely did these 2 movies and they were successful, but like, to get that cast to agree, they would need to agree 2 more full movies. And I don't know if Warner Brothers has the money to do it.
Well, it was interesting because the director said that he only wanted to do 1 more movie, and Dune Messiah being a smaller book than Dune, he said he could adapt that into 1 movie, which is feasible if he does it right. And he's done a lot of the groundwork already with these 2 movies, so I think it's very possible. But I do think he would need to let the cast age up a little bit, maybe give it like 3 to 5 years before he films, just to like put it all out there. But there's a lot of great stuff in that one, and I'm really, really hoping it does happen. But
It's the third incarnation of Dune. If you don't do past the first two books, that means in the next decade, someone else is going to tell the Dune story. Because the original books, there's 5 of them. If somebody's eventually going to get there.
6, but yeah.
I like the 5th one. I don't remember the 6th one, so maybe that's
there's
why
a lot of crazy
5.
stuff in those books. But anyways, as we talked about Dune, so let's talk about DC. One of the first things that I want to talk about right off the bat was something that came through the woodwork earlier in the last maybe hour or two. So a couple scoopers on the interwebs. I got this, like, my DMs blown up pretty quickly. I got a new follower. Yay. Right off the bat, let me see if it pulls it up here. There was a podcast by the Geeky Cast, and then it was corroborated by Can We Get Toast or some toast, another scooper. Kind of on the flimsier side of credibility, but it's fully possible. And this would actually add a lot of it makes a lot of sense plot-wise. So it's not something that I'm going to say, oh yeah, this is true, this is not true. We're going to talk about the rumor, and we're going to talk about how feasible it actually is. So first and foremost, the main villain of Superman, formerly titled Superman Legacy, is supposedly Lex Luthor, which we already know. There's not going to be a Brainiac factor. There's not going to be anything like that. But one of the plot lines is that Lex Luthor quietly clones Superman and dubs him my Ultraman, my answer to Superman, which a lot of people said, okay, Ultraman is the crime syndicate version of Superman. He is like the bad guy Earth 3 Superman, where he's a bad dude and he's got the crime syndicate, and their whole deal is let's just take over the Earth and rule it with an iron fist.
It could also be Superboy.
Because it could also be Bizarro.
It could also be Bizarro.
But one thing that I'd like to point out to a lot of people who may not have caught on, back in 2007, there was actually a Death of Superman movie that was made called Superman Doomsday.
I saw this.
And in this movie, Lex Luthor basically cloned Superman and said the world needs a Superman because Superman's dead. And that clone kind of goes nuts and becomes a bad Superman. And real Superman, a.k.a. Mullet Superman, has to beat the crap out of him and put him down. I was thinking about this rumor, and I didn't ask anybody if it was true yet or not. I'm not too interested on finding out the validity or not. Way I see it is, like I said before, very early on in the casting speculation, when we have casting for members of the Authority, we have members of the JSA, Mr. Terrific, Green Lantern, and Hawk Girl, and we were always talking about what kind of threat would be required to get other members of the JL or JSA or other superhero teams to get involved in a fight. And I said it had to be like a Brainiac level villain to actually require that many heroes to show up and fight this person,
or another Superman,
or a Superman.
So of the choices you just gave me, and then the choice that we went past, but I'll get back to mine in a second. The only reason why I think they wouldn't do that Doomsday is I feel like there's a concerted effort for us to see Superman in his boyish good looks, now a man, in the costume doing good. I don't think that they would put the real Superman in a mullet to beat up what we think is Superman, right?
And I don't think that's what they're doing. I think what's going to happen is Superman is Superman, and then Lex is going to debut his Ultraman, his mankind Superman, to combat the issues or whatever of aliens taking law into their own hands. And you're going to have the stark contrast between Superman and the Ultraman, and eventually it's going to result in Ultraman going haywire and kind of becoming a Bizarro-like character.
Do you think that when you mean Bizarro, you mean just the opposite, or do you think this Ultraman gets hit by cosmic rays, he gets thrown into the sun, he goes through a portal which kills him but like brings him back on the other side, and then he comes back? Now, he's only been gone 30 seconds, but in his time, he's been gone decades. And then we see, what does Bizarro sound like? I'm going to punch you, super. Like, do we go to that?
I think that it's probably going to be more like in the old animated show where Superman was cloned and a cloned Superman started to experience cellular degradation and then kind of devolved into the Bizarro that we know. I could see them going that route if they do that. But it's a very interesting way of showing why the world needs a proper Superman. If you have a bad guy Superman and then normal Superman, and you have the duality of those two characters explaining why good guy Boy Scout Superman is important.
That first picture you showed with Mob Boss Superman guy, the one with the T on his chest.
Oh, the U?
Yeah, the
It's a
up.
U.
Yeah, wonderful. I could absolutely see this guy with the authority showing up to some disaster and saying, we're here to save the day. You guys get out of here. And then Superman and the JSA go head to head with them.
Yeah, I could see that being a very easy way of tying it all in, because you have the more recent comics where you have Superman and the Authority, and instead of Superman and the Authority, it's kind of like a pseudo Task Force X kind of a scenario where this is a government sanctioned team and the Authority is that team, and they have a super being leading that team, but also doing a bunch of dirty work and not giving a crap about collateral damage and all that jazz.
I would be fine if we saw the whole movie and we don't get Bizarro to the end of the movie. And
Right.
the tease at the end of the movie is we see the cellular degenerated one, and he's like, "Guess who's gonna be gone?" Like, doesn't he talk? But he says backwards things.
Me, I'm good.
Here's Jack Nicholson. Like, he'll just say the wrong thing.
In my mind, every time I read the comics, I would do this Bizarro voice as if it was like Grimlock from the old Transformers show, where he's just like dumb and like, me am Grimlock, me love rocks, like things like that. Like, that's how I just imagine how Bizarro talks, but I don't know. Maybe I'm just mean, but that's how I imagine him.
I feel like Lex Luthor is going to be the bad guy for all the Superman movies, and we're going to get Bizarro, and we're going to get Metallo, and we're going to get Metallo and Lobo, and we're going to get Brainiac eventually.
And that could be a very interesting approach to it all. And like I said, this is why this rumor came up. A lot of people saying, "Oh, this is where it's at. This is it." And on one side, like I said, this is why I could see it being a thing. But on the same token, I could also see it not being a real thing, because obviously this news came out of two sort of okay scoopers when it comes to DC content. And James Gunn himself has been so tight-knit on this stuff that we already know that there's been very much controlled leaks on fake info going out there, and just to throw people off the trail for the real stuff. So very much it could just be Lex Luthor and the Authority being like the primary moral antagonists to Superman's Boy Scout route, saying this is why I need to do this way, and the world wants me to go that way, like you guys.
And there's no chance we get the Japanese Ultraman who shows up and is like, "Superman, I'm here to shoot lasers at you, and we're gonna fight in the sky."
Yeah, no, honestly, I love Ultraman. Like that, it's one of my I don't know, guilty pleasure characters. I love the character so much. I also like Gridman. I thought that was a fantastic character too. It's of that same vein of humanoid kaiju fighting heroes of Japan.
Was that what VR Troopers was based on?
VR Troopers was Gridman. Yeah, it was a Power Ranger version of Gridman. Yeah.
Very cool. Okay. I haven't asked you. I think there are three different things you're asking, because Hopes is probably more down to earth.
Yeah.
Expectations is probably what you think is going to happen. But what are your dreams? Like, if they go into your head, James Gunn goes into your head while you're sleeping and reads the Taylor files of the things that you wish would happen, right? Doesn't matter if it's too difficult to do, they're going to do it. What do you want to see, Taylor? Because my expectations are going to be very different. It's even with my dreams, because I feel like my dreams are way out there.
So what I want is, one of the first early rumors that we had for the DCU was essentially Darwin Cook's, I think it was Brave Frontier or New Frontier. Yeah, DC's New Frontier. That was the Chapter 1 Gods and Monsters storyline. That was a big rumor that came off right off the bat. And that the main villain, the overarching character that's going to be the main antagonist, is the Center, which was a character in the DC comics that was essentially everywhere and nowhere. It's like this omniscient entity that lives on Earth and is a part of Earth's consciousness and is basically saying humans are a problem. I need to kill them all. And it was a very interesting rumor. And I was like, the more I thought about it, the more I was like, that would actually be really cool if they did that route where you have like essentially a way to coordinate all of these different plot lines, all of these different characters, all of the good guys, the bad guys, the sub teams, and then have one big Justice League moment at the very end where you have all of these characters unified to fight this one thing. And I thought that was a really cool idea. So my hope is something like that, where you have either like a Brainiac level villain or like the Center or something that requires the entire Earth to say, okay, maybe we should stop being dicks to each other and let's fight it together. And then
I was going to say, if we get the cloning story as part of Superman early on, it'll be a great segue for Superboy to join the Teen Titans.
it would.
Or maybe even have the beginning of the Teen Titans movie be the end of where Lex Luthor goes, okay, the first one wasn't so good, but now we got the real kid.
Now we got Connor V2. We fixed the degradation issue by mixing human DNA into it.
We fixed it. Let's send him out. Or maybe even have him be the villain of maybe it's too close to this. Maybe he's the villain of the Teen Titans movie and they're like, no. You don't have to work for Lex Luthor. You're your own person.
Yeah. We could go that route too. But we do know that there was a Teen Titans movie. So my hope would be that right off the bat, you have Superman setting up this year 2, year 3 Superman story. You establish that this world is full of heroes, that they've been around forever, kind of explain there's a history with the JSA, the Authority, all these other characters, and essentially have like the Justice League be the modern day JSA, essentially. Like the JSA was the heroes of yesterday, the heroes of today is the League. And have Batman be an established character already, like have him being Batman for like 10, 15 years at this point, have Nightwing already established, have a couple Robins already under the belt, and have Nightwing be a founding member of the Teen Titans, which is just called the Titans because that's what they are in the comics. They're not called the Teen Titans. That was just the marketing for the comic book. Have him be a founding member of the Titans and now kind of running the Outsiders in a way. And that's where you can have Nightwing and Metamorpho to kind of team up and do their thing. But you have that go that route, have Batman already established, have members of like the Justice League Dark already kind of established, so you can intertwine that supernatural aspect. I would have the Green Lanterns already be kind of established on Earth. Like obviously we have Guy Gardner, so we have to already have John Stewart and Hal Jordan somewhere out there. So have multiple iterations of the Lanterns already exist on Earth and kind of tell the story as if like this world has already been living and existing, and don't treat it like the Marvel formula where every time we introduce a new character, let's do an origin story. If you want to do origin stories, tell them in animation, tell them on HBO Max, just go right into the thick of it. And if do it like they do in the comics, where there's like some random, you pick up an issue and that says, to understand more about this character, read this. Like, just have it like a footnote and just kind of like tie itself back to the other stuff. But I would very much like that kind of a dynamic where you just kind of jump into the thick of it right off the bat and just kind of treat it as the world already knows these characters. It already knows who Batman is. It already knows who Superman is. You don't need to spend 45, 50 minutes and just tell an origin story. Like with Batman v Superman, the best thing that they did was tell Batman's origin story via music in a 10-minute introduction. And I've always felt that one of the best things you can do for superhero movies is do what they did in Incredible Hulk. And the opening credits is the origin, and that's it. And don't even talk about it again. Just bring it up, show it real fast, go. Because that saves so much time, and you can just go right into the fun stuff.
What would be your dream scenario of releases? And what I mean by that, not necessarily the order, but we're going to get a movie, a TV show, and some animations. How often would you like to see this? Every Superman comes out, and then a month later, 8 weeks later, we see a TV show or an animated thing, and then 3 months later, because like there's all of these stories they have to tell. They got to start telling them.
Yeah. I personally think that the best approach is kind of what Marvel wanted to do, but kind of lost themselves into. Tell the stories an almost like a intermediary kind of a way. Like you have Superman comes out in the summer, and in December and the fall or winter, we have an Elseworld story. But in between those, let's have a couple more canon TV shows, animated projects to kind of tide everyone over into the next movie and kind of just set it up to maybe 2 times a year, 3 times a year of the canon stories. And then in between each of those stories have like at least just one, maybe just one backstory related HBO project. And then kind of go with that route and just kind of like constantly have people who are willing to be there. That way it doesn't feel like, oh, I saw that movie like 5 years ago. I forgot what I was doing. Kind of like what happened with the Batman. Like how long ago did the Batman come out with now?
It's kind of 2 years ago. Was it 2 years ago?
And the show that was supposed to bridge the gap between number 1 and 2 is finally coming out this fall.
Right.
And then the next movie is coming out in like 2 years. So I want it to be tighter than that. But that kind of an idea is how I think of it. Like you have one movie, you have a show that bridges some storyline gaps, and then you have the next movie, but kind of do it a little bit tighter. And
do you think that this universe is big enough to get a visionary director who has a story that they want to tell that might look different than the other movies, but is also a part of this universe? And what I'm talking about is, and I know that, the track record isn't good, but I would love to see what J.J. Abrams would do with the DC hero. I would love to see what Nolan would do in a universe where it's like, nah, sorry, magic robots are real here.
Yeah.
You can still do your IMAX stuff, but like someone's going to get punched through a pyramid at some point.
Yeah. I mean, it would be fun to see Nolan come back and just embrace the fantastical. I don't see him doing that because he already had a superhero fix with the Dark Knight trilogy, and I feel like he's done. I think he's paid his dues, and he really put DC back on the map for a lot of people. But
I mean, we need somebody like that again. James Gunn is going to be a big idea guy and is going to put all this together, but he can't be the only. There's got to be multiple pilots. We need multiple planes going at once.
And I think they're going to, because I mean, you've already had directors. I mean, we have just forgot his name, James Mangold, who I mean, he's had a bit of a rocky filmography. I'm not going to lie, because I mean, he gave us Logan, then he also gave us Indiana Jones 5. So,
but see, I don't blame him.
He gave us Logan.
But like again. I hear that, but like, don't most of the weeks we just talk about the problems with Disney and this like board that you have to get things approved from? So like, how much of that was his movie and how much of that was things he was told, this is what you have to do?
Yeah. No, I fully agree. And I think what would be interesting, because James Mangold doing Swamp Thing and being a part of the supernatural weird side of DC is a huge win right off the bat.
Yeah.
But I love the idea. What if they got someone like Matthew Vaughn and brought him in? And because Matthew Vaughn is a fantastic director, but some of the issues that people are having with him are when he does his own stories, they don't quite go the way that they kind of anticipate. I mean, what did he most recently do? It was Argyle, right? That was him, right?
And Argyle
was a very expensive stinker, unfortunately, because a lot of people who liked Matthew Vaughn's film said that basically this was an amalgamation of like 20 different spy movies, and you could see all of the things from those movies. But get Matthew Vaughn into the DC corner and say, bring us that weird, colorful nature of your filmography and do something obscure. Like what if Matthew Vaughn did The Authority? That would be fun, right? That would be a lot of like, I'd be down for that in a heartbeat.
A dream of mine is they get Steven Spielberg and he does a JSA character. He does the original Green Lantern in the 60s. He can do a crazy period piece, and it just happens to also be Hawkman or somebody, but you can have all of your Steven Spielberg shots in it.
No, do Steven Spielberg and do the World War II JSA story. Like, give us that movie. Give us all of the heroes fighting the Nazis, and have the villain of the World War II JSA movie be Vandal Savage, the Immortal, and have him basically like say Hitler's he's very myopic, but I'm gonna take their ideas and push it further. And it's gonna feel a lot like Captain America. It's gonna feel a lot like
Wonder Woman felt like Captain America.
Right. But if you do it right and you have like a team and you have like Hawkman and the old school Flash and the old school Green Lantern, and you have like Black Canary's grandma or whatever, and you have like Wonder Woman and be like, by the way, she lives forever. Like have like Wonder Woman appear in all of these period pieces, just fighting different wars with everybody. That'd be a lot of fun. Right.
Who is the director who directed Poor Things? Have you seen Poor Things yet?
I haven't, honestly.
Okay. It's fantastic. It's a dark comedy. It's a weird sci-fi world, even though it doesn't look like it. And there's some like steampunk stuff in it. The way that he shoots it, some of those scenes reminded me of Batman the Animated Series with like dirigibles and stuff like that. Let's let that guy do a weird artsy Batman movie. Like, let's elevate something with these characters. I am totally for that. I think that these movies need to be good on their own, which is already difficult, in addition to fundamentally being true to these characters and these storylines that what you are talking about. Here's a question for you. What are your hopes for the communication from James Gunn? His communication's been very good, but it's been a lot of him arguing with people on Instagram at the end of his day, which are official, but not really. Would you like podcasts out of them? Would you like more YouTube? How would you like them to communicate this new universe?
I would very much like, once everything's up and running and moving along, and James Gunn is done with his multiple projects this year, because we already know that there's not only Superman is filming right now, but midway through the year, they're going to be breaking ground on Peacemaker, the reboot of Peacemaker, because it is a season 2, but it's not at the same time. And then you have the stuff with Waller also coming into play, and then the hidden movie that hasn't been announced yet, which is totally Supergirl. And I would very much like them to do like maybe once or twice a year, just kind of like hey, everyone, this is where we're at. Here's our update. Kind of like a Hall H Comic-Con panel, but digitally. Like kind of like the PlayStation State of Play. Just like every once in a while, just be like, here's a 10-minute video of us telling you what we're doing right now.
We talked about communication, and we talked a whole bunch about Superman. What do you want to see for this Supergirl movie? And is Supergirl the movie, do you want it to be a continuation of what just happened in the Superman movie? Or do you want it, she's probably going to go off-world, or do you want her to have her own adventure?
Well, it's supposed to be, I mean, if they are adapting Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow in any sense of the way other than the name, Supergirl is going to leave the planet because she's trying to find her own way outside of her cousin Shadow. And she's going to go kind of universe hopping eventually and becoming like this savior character to all these different alien races and kind of coming into her own as a character.
That's a great movie. Great. That's a really fun movie of her going to a bunch of different planets. And, you know, I don't want it to be like Thor, but you can have a lot of fun with going to alien worlds with her.
Yeah. I mean, we can learn a lot from how Marvel did it wrong. I mean, James Gunn has already proven that he can do weird alien world hopping very well with his Guardians of the Galaxy movies. So if you did something like that, where she's just like going around this like alien slum, or here she is on a planet that's not so different than half of the stuff in Guardians of the Galaxy, yeah, that'd be a lot of fun for a very colorful character to look out of place. I don't want for a second to feel like how we got it with the Marvels or Thor movies, where every universe trip was this weird musical number that didn't fit in for the rest of the movie. But I very much want them to take it seriously, but also embrace the weird.
In your dream scenario, we're getting Superman, most likely somewhere after Supergirl. We'll be having Joker 2 is going to happen, and the second Batman movie is going to happen. We've talked about this a couple other times. What would be your dream order of these movies coming out? Superman, Supergirl, and then what? Movies, not the, and we can maybe talk TV shows as well, but the movie characters. Who do you want to see after those two?
I would very much like them to see kind of a smaller budget, hard R Authority film. Do that film,
followed by the hard R Swamp Thing, or
I think Swamp Thing is an interesting character because it doesn't have to be rated R to be. I mean, we all saw the show, and the show was fantastic. And when it was the TV MA version of the show, it was fantastic. And but then at the same time, if you saw the CW version of the show, not much actually changed. They just took some language out and made it darker in some spots so it wouldn't be as gory and graphic. You can still make a PG-13 movie, push that envelope, and still make it PG-13.
Okay.
So I don't think everything needs to be rated R unless it actually needs to be rated R. I think PG-13's already pushed that envelope enough to where you can get away with a lot more than people realize.
Great. So we get R Authority, rated R Authority movie. Then what?
Then I want them to go back into the DC roots. Give us Batman. Give us whatever you're doing with Wonder Woman and Aquaman. Do something with that. Do something with. If you want to make Wonder Woman, Aquaman, and Flash sub characters until they eventually get into other things, you're going to have to find ways to organically mix them into the stories. But I would very much like to see more of the hero side of things. I would like to see it like a JSA period piece movie, like I said. I would like to see Titans. I would like to see that world get built up from there. I would love to see a Nightwing movie and do a lot of Batman backstory with a Nightwing movie.
I would like Aquaman to not be a joke. I would like him to feel all of his Aquaman-ness and see him. I think they did a good job of like showing that Aquaman can do cool stuff, but I would like to see him in his full glory as another voice in the world.
Yeah.
Same thing with that.
It's kind of a weird thing, and this is something that I've been kind of grappling with my own views on how Aquaman should have been handled. I saw what Zack Snyder was planning to do with Aquaman in the Zack Snyder's Justice League and how Atlantis looked the way it did. And then you saw how James Wan did it, which was very bright and colorful and essentially Tron underwater.
He made it look like the Abyss. He took the aliens in the Abyss and he's like, oh, that's what they're like.
So my imagining would always have been like, if Atlantis was real, yes, it would have advanced technology, but it would also have that kind of this empire that has existed for thousands of years, kind of this Game of Thrones vibes to it. Where
like
we've been running
Rome. We see a pyramid. We see columns. We see they've influenced worlds at different times.
And that was always what was very interesting about how they did it in the movies, was that they acknowledged the fact that Atlantis was probably around and sank during the Roman Empire. So they were a big part of history. And that's even why Zack Snyder said, when they're coming and speaking English, they all have accents, because the last time they spoke English, it was probably during the time period where they all had accents. So they just never changed from that. And that made sense to me. So as much as I loved the Aquaman movies, Jason Momoa played Jason Momoa, who was Jason Momoa as Aquaman, which was a lot of fun. But
it's a wrestling movie. The Fast and Furious movies feel like wrestling movies to me, right? There's a good guy and a heel, and you root for one. They did the same thing with him.
Yeah. And so I would very much like whatever they do with Aquaman to feel distinctively different than the last iteration. Same thing with the Flash. If you're going to do the Flash again, let's make the Flash a little older. Let's make him not so he's like right in college age and seems like maybe he's like 19. Do older Barry Allen mentoring his newly recruited Teen Titan nephew and go that route. Because as much as we all liked the Flash TV show and we all realized that Grant Gustin was probably old enough to make this work, the guy looked so young that even with the 10th seat, like the end of the show, he looked like he was still like 22. So you need to have somebody who has this like kind of a mentory older vibe to him.
We know that Teen Titans is in the mix in all of this. Yeah. What of their stories, which one do you think will translate to film the best? Do you think it's time to see them fight their favorite villain, or do you think they need something a little bit bigger?
I would very much like to see the Titans square off against Deathstroke and have that be a plot point. Because one of my favorite things, and this was something that we talked about a lot when we were younger, when that book Identity Crisis came out, where you had Deathstroke come in and just demolish the Justice League. And the reasoning why was that the Titans were able to fight him because they were coordinated and they had attack patterns and they knew how to fight a guy who could be everywhere by being everywhere. But the Justice League never had that. So he was able to defeat the crap out of the Justice League because they weren't as coordinated as the teams. Have that be a plot point. Have something like Deathstroke being, he's essentially a mercenary, exactly what he is. And then have later on down the line where the Justice League is doing something, Deathstroke shows up, beats the crap out of them, and then find out that he is just a hired gun for another villain. And just have like Deathstroke be this reoccurring asshole that just keeps coming in and is just awesome every time we see him.
That Teen Titans show was a great show. I watched a lot of it, so I feel like so much of my understanding of it.
The live action Titans or the cartoon Titans?
Both the cartoon Titans and then also the Young Justice. I just watched a lot of that stuff, so I feel like that informs me in a lot of ways.
I love those shows, and I would very much like the DCU to kind of have that Young Justice vibe where it's taken very seriously and being done very well.
Well, I was going to ask you, who do you want to see on the Teen Titans?
I said this on social media that my dream hope for the Titans is that you have kind of what they did in the DC animated universe, where you have the newest recruit being Damian Wayne, but the Titans have existed for long enough to where like the mentor figure is like Starfire or Raven or someone, and have like the OG Titans now be the adult mentors to the younger Titans, and have some like weird characters, some of the like a new Aqualad or a new Kid Flash, and have like these newer characters as the new team, and then you could tell a lot of backstory with like, oh, by the way, the founding Titans was Nightwing, Cyborg, Starfire, and Raven.
I like that. And then Cyborg is now in the universe, but he's doing something right now.
Yeah, and Cyborg is now working with his dad at Star Labs, and he's trying to help build the Watchtower or something like. Have the character mentioned, but you don't necessarily have to bring him into play, because I love Cyborg as a character. I don't like him as a member of the Justice League, but Zack Snyder also kind of proved that Cyborg can be the most powerful being on the planet unless you give him serious like character constraints. So maybe not throw him into play right off the bat, because he could be overpowered very quickly.
Well, and then I'm thinking of a character like Beast Boy, who's going to be funny and will be that comic relief. And James Gunn very clearly knows how to write those characters. How powerful do we make him? Do we give him all of his like crazy primal animal stuff right away? Or do we see the movie where he gets beat up using lions, tigers, and bears, and that he has to step up his game?
Well, I think that would be a very interesting place. So if you, like I said before, if you introduce the Center as the villain, and have Hat be the overarching villain, having a character like Beast Boy who's tied into the animal kingdom could mean that the Center could essentially take over Beast Boy and turn him into a chimera monster that has to fight the team, which would be a lot of fun.
Or Swamp Thing. Could they take over? Yeah, and then pin him against a group.
Yeah, so I mean, if you have a lot of options with something like that, but I think that if you do Beast Boy, you have to make him very similar to how you did in the animated version, where he can transform to random animals, but do give him some limitations, but not as limited as the live action show, where like for 2 seasons he's a tiger and he doesn't know he can turn into other things, and then all at once he's overpowered. Like, you have to have this nice Beast Boy can turn into these animals, but he has to also consume thousands of calories every hour, because he'll pass out after he turns into an animal.
Or he has to concentrate super hard, so it's difficult to go from one to another.
Yeah, he can't just be like, oh, I'm a jaguar. Oh, I'm a snake. Oh, I'm a bird. Like, he can't be like the Rock's character from Moana, where he just transforms into whatever he wants as he's mid-fight. Like, you have to, Moana, right? The Disney movie where he's like,
I was trying to think. Yeah,
like,
no, I was
to, like, limit him a little bit.
No, I was trying to think. Was there a shapeshifter in the New Mutants movie?
Was there?
Or she just turns into a wolf, I guess. I don't remember. I was trying to think. I thought they did like maybe just a teleporter.
Oh, Wolfsbane. Wolfsbane. Yeah, she was the werewolf character.
Yeah, okay. And then there was also like a teleporter guy.
Yeah, but I mean, if you do it right, I mean, you can have a lot of fun with a team like that. But I think you'd very much have I don't know. You could do it right. You just got to limit these characters a little bit before you go nuts with them.
Okay. What is, you've talked about the Authority movie. What are the TV shows? What are the stories that you think should be told in an episodic fashion? Because here's the thing I want to feel different than Marvel. I want the TV shows to feel like TV shows, and I want the movies to feel like movies. Not that the movies are long TV shows or that the TV shows feel like condensed movies.
I think that background stories for the TV shows would be fantastic. Like if you're telling a story about Batman being a veteran to Batman and introducing Batman versus like Batman's now got his new son, tell a Batman story right off the bat with like Batman introducing to the League of Assassins and have like explain that backstory in TV show format, or Batman's first Robin, like Batman and Robin, do that as a TV show instead of a movie where you have like
that would be great, Taylor.
Or like
Taylor,
if
like they establish
like a 5-episode anthology series of like the Batman Chronicles, where it's like here's an episode for all these different periods in his life. Do something like that where you can focus 45 minutes to an hour explaining bits of his backstory that you don't want to dedicate an entire movie to. Yeah.
And it's a great way to get through show characters in the past, and then we can see them later on, and we're like, oh, I understand why Nightwing doesn't want you to get another Robin. We saw that Robin get murdered by the Joker.
Yeah. So like if you do it right, you can actually have a lot of fun and do a lot with it. And I think one of the big things is that so Marvel, people compare the Marvel contract as if you sign yourself to Marvel, you essentially sign yourself into indentured servitude working for Disney, where no matter where they need you, you're there. I think that's kind of what's also happening with DC. Sorry, I'm getting distracted by something. Where if you have a character that you're going to introduce and you bring them right into the forefront and say, okay, you're now Batman for the next 10 years. You're not Superman for the next 10 years. And with that, basically say that every time we need you, you're going to be on retainer. You need to have people that are willing to accept that I'm going to be the face of this character for a long time. And I think if you do it right and you do the proper mix, you could have characters, as they said before, that will appear in multiple mediums across the board. Like if you have one Batman who's now also a Batman for the show, animated Batman and all that, if you get a person that is fully committed to saying the next 10 years of my career, I'm going to be Batman 500 times, embrace it. Like, let us see that all the time. Like, because Marvel, with their TV shows, the only character that felt like they were a member of the Avengers that was now a focus of a show was Hawkeye.
Oh, and Samuel L. Jackson.
Yeah, but even then, they wasted that show. Like, it felt like that show could have been so much better, but it felt like they kind of cut itself off at the knees, not knowing what they wanted to do with the show.
You've talked about the Authority, and I understand that they are different than the Suicide Squad. Where does the Suicide Squad fit in this? Or what is your hope for the Suicide Squad?
Well, we do know that Peacemaker is being retooled to fit in this universe, and that Amanda Waller had a Suicide Squad.
How is that going to work? Because they set up such a crazy world. Do you think he just wakes up and slaps the alarm, and he just goes, "Oh, we're in Earth 337. It's different here."
Well, what they're going to probably do is just kind of explain, like, this is a different world. Simple as that. Like, you're going to have to tweak the costumes. You're going to have to change the look. You're going to have to change some details. But as long as it looks somewhat similar, but also there's enough visual distinction that it's not the same, that's all that's going to really matter. Because, I mean, most people are going to tune into Peacemaker Season 2 because they liked the first one. So, I mean, even if James Gunn wants to say, let's do Peacemaker, let's do Waller, let's do all this stuff, and then just move on, I don't think people would care.
I like the cast of Peacemaker a lot, and I don't want to say recast it, but if you were to flip a gender of any person, right, and all of a sudden this character comes out as a lady or somebody else, you would be like, oh, okay, this is a different universe.
Yeah. You could easily do something like that. But also at the same time, just like establish that the backstories don't line up. Like use flashbacks and tell the story differently with flashbacks to really establish it. Like, oh, the time I was part of the Suicide Squad, and then just show us a different Suicide Squad.
Yeah, 100%. Because I do feel like that is the place I would rather see when they bring back, when we get back Harley Quinn. She will be back. When we get her, I would love to just see her on Suicide Squad. She's already there. She's been there.
Or just don't put it in there at all. I mean, if you have Joker and Harley, have Joker and Harley. Don't have Suicide Squad Harley.
So if that's it then, and we're getting this new Suicide Squad, I've never asked you, who would be on your perfect? What's your dream Suicide Squad in terms of characters?
So in terms of characters, I would love to see a range of characters that actually complement each other and not just a bunch of random human characters that all do the same thing and have guns. Right. Obviously, I would like a giant meta like King Shark. Captain Boomerang would still be a lot of fun as long as they use him correctly. I felt like both iterations of the movies, Captain Boomerang was wasted. I mean, he had a much better vibe in the second movie, then they killed him in 30 seconds in, which is right. But if you do it right, you have like King Shark or Killer Croc or one of the big metas and allow them to be a big meta. Like what James Gunn did with King Shark, like do that again, but also don't make him stupid. Make him exactly what he is in the comics. Like he is a ancient deity who doesn't like humans. Like,
do we see him fighting Aquaman in a flashback?
That would be great. Best way to introduce all this connective tissue is to show us flashbacks. Let us have those. But then, like, I also want to see a Batman villain that's actually like a meta. Like, it'd be a lot of fun to have like a Man-Bat character. Have him. Like, he's the scientist. He doesn't want to change, but give him kind of this Hulk factor where he's like, I have to do this. He pulls out his little vials and says, okay, I have to do this to get in the fight.
Yeah.
Do something like that would be a lot of fun. Or even someone like, have like the Clock King, this very meticulous, obsessive, compulsive master planner, be a part of the team. That'd be a lot of fun. Or give me a Reverse Flash as a key member, like they did at the New 52. Give me a speedster that is being basically held against their will because of a Speed Force inhibitor or a bomb in their brain or something that they have to be present and they can't get away.
And we put John Cena on this team too, right? Like we put Peacemaker on there.
We put Peacemaker as part of the backstory, but even with the animated stuff, the anime Suicide Squad Iseki or whatever that's coming out later this year, their team is pretty great. I mean, you've got Harley Quinn, you got Deadshot, you got Clayface, and you got Peacemaker. That's a pretty damn cool team. Like, I would love a character like Clayface to be on a team like this. Someone that is just so damn weird, so damn fun, and visually, I want that. Like, that would be like, if you're going to give me the Suicide Squad and you want to make me to believe that Amanda Waller is as menacing and formidable as she is, give us some legitimate metas that you would be like, damn, she caught that one. Cool. Okay. And her catching Clayface, like, how the hell do you put a bomb in a shapeshifter?
Yeah.
How did she pull that off? Like,
yeah. And then we get to see Batman, his fights with Batman, and maybe don't even show Batman, but we get the inkling that he's there.
Or just do something like where they're all like, how do you get caught? The bat. And just like a quick, like, one of the characters running and like a big black shadow is chasing them. Like, oh yeah, just show it from the villain's angle and how scary Batman is.
Is there anything that I didn't ask you that you think should be said for your hopes and dreams and speculations on all of this?
I hope that no matter what they do, it feels like every story can be self-contained, but also part of the bigger world. I don't want to go into it and feel like I did with Marvel, where every time I went to the movies, I felt like I had to see the next one. Otherwise, I was going to miss some vital portion. What James Gunn said at the beginning, where he said that all of these pieces they're voluntary, but they will be rewarding if you do get involved. Like, I love that idea. And as long as they stick to that, make everything feel standalone and let them be connected to where they in the most organic way possible. Because everyone talks about how these shared universes are these big places, but if you watch the Marvel shared universe, yeah, it feels like they're all still part of the same world and they're all still directly impacting each other. Like you have this Tony Stark syndrome where every villain is tied to Tony Stark some way. I don't want that. I want it to be like, yes, there's going to be some passing references. There's going to be billboards. There's going to be news articles or newscasting in the background explaining it. Like maybe a little bit like the TV show Lost, where you have these Easter eggs connecting everyone together, but not necessarily important.
Sure.
I would love to see, like in the Batman movie, just in the background of the Batcave, like a screen where you're seeing like Superman fight somebody and him be like, I'm just keeping tabs on everybody. And just an acknowledgement like the world is bigger there, but not necessarily required. Let the stories be their own stories. Like to me, one of the best things that Marvel did was Moon Knight, where you had this character who was clearly part of the MCU, but also you could watch that show stand alone and be like, yeah, I guess they made a reference to the Avengers, but you didn't have to see any of them to have any matter whatsoever.
I mean, if that's the case, then I mean, that's basically what they did into the Spider-Verse, right?
Yeah.
They're like, don't even talk to me about that Spider-Man, Doctor Strange universe. They're like, what? Yeah. That was it. That's the only thing they said. Keep moving on.
Like, just do it in a way that, I don't know, like when I look at things and I look at the MCU, like I said, everything felt too connected, too tight-knit, everything was involved with everything else. And for the DCU to feel different but also connected, make it realistic. All these characters do have lives. All these situations are very much separate. And like you could easily have like a passing reference here and there, like Batman is fighting somebody and then he gets a call from like Superman says, do you want me to come and take care of this? He's like, no, deal with your own crap. And just have something like that where you acknowledge that these other heroes are out there, but they are busy. Like they are doing things and they don't need to be constantly helping each other. Like the big issue that I had with a lot of people who complained about the Suicide Squad movie was that where are the Justice League? Why aren't they coming in and why are they doing this? It's like, well, they're also doing other things. Like in the Flash movie, the beginning of the movie, Batman is calling Flash for help because Superman is dealing with a volcano. More scenes like that can go a long way for me. Like just explain that these other heroes are doing other things so that the world feels connected, but also not required to have everybody be on every single situation.
Well, I think that's a good spot then. We're going to have more Superman news soon. We'll probably have more Batman news soon. And we get to watch the new Penguin show pretty soon.
Yeah. And I'm pretty excited about that. The Penguin show looks like it's going to be a whole lot of fun. It's going to be dark. And I want to see more of Matt Reeves' world because we're not going to get a lot of it for a while. So I'm all in. But with Superman, I mean, we already had that one set photo leak of the engineer. So I'm willing to bet sooner rather than later, the next time they're going to do any sort of outdoor shooting, if they are going to do any more, that you're going to probably see an official look at some of these characters before they let Just Jared or whatever that site was to paparazzi it up all over the internet.
Right.
So I would like to think that by this time in the next 90 days, we'll see a picture of Superman out there. I think what the best thing that Jim's going to can do is wrap up filming and then just release a cast photo at the end of filming. And he's like, by the way, here's everybody.
And not in CG or not in their CG, maybe their makeup, but we just see a big cast photo.
I mean, we already know what Lex Luthor essentially looks like because
they showed
the
us.
The actor has been going around like he went to a basketball game over the weekend with like his kid and people were like, oh, so he's straight up bald.
So okay. So you mean Lex Luthor likes basketball?
Apparently, yeah.
Okay.
But no, I would definitely like to see. I would like them to be as transparent as they physically can without spoiling things. And I honestly, I kind of love the idea that we don't know a damn thing, and we're still like the movie's been filming for how long now, and we still don't know who the villain is of the movie. Like that's exciting to me. It feels like no matter what corner of the internet you're on, you have people speculating, and the fact that we may not know a thing about this movie until the trailer hits is kind of exciting in this day and age, at least.
It's very exciting. Well, we'll have to wait for a trailer. You have screaming babies to go take care of now.
Could you actually hear him? I mean, he's pretty loud.
I felt bad. I was like, Dad's almost done. Just wait 2 more minutes.
Yeah, he's not going to wait. He's just mad at the world. But on a completely separate note, one thing that I did want to talk to you about, Michael, was as the next baby comes into play in June, that gives us 8-9 weeks. I have been toying on around the idea of changing up the format of the show. So as we do move forward with the show, you guys may see some episodes that are just focused directly by Michael musing about things, or you may see Michael with a new co-host, or me and Michael still doing our thing. But I would like to know what everyone wants to see from us going forward while I'm on my baby leave, because it's going to be an interesting time.
It's a great idea. I'll absolutely keep the show going. Send me any guests you send my way, I will get to. Ooh, I do like the idea of some fun co-hosts. I would love to talk nerd with some other people. Whoever they are, they have to be knowledgeable, Taylor, because I cannot carry the show by myself. I need somebody with a wall of toys behind them to keep me on board.
Yeah. Don't let that dude Gabe co-host. Yeah. Maybe Gabe, maybe we might have you co-host. That'd be a lot of fun, actually. Because there was one time we were doing a live show with it was like Gabe and a few other people, and my connection cut out, and Gabe was like, I'm taking over this show, and he ran it for like 5 minutes until I got my connection back. So that would be a lot of fun. I think we can figure something out.
Listen, we have a wonderful network of many talented people here under the Cultured Nerd umbrella. I would love to chat with them all, find out where their head's at with all of these fun things. Yeah, there will be shows while Taylor is taking care of babies, I promise. Maybe we would do a baby update. Once an episode,
I might just come on the show and have like a baby harness on and be like, here we are.
Yeah.
Here we are.
This is me. This is Taylor in the kitchen making chicken nuggets for the other baby as he holds this baby.
Yeah, that would be a funny, kind of like a video vlog, kind of a, here's day 568. Like the child is now 45, but he is not. Like just something ridiculous, but I can have fun with that. But on that note, Michael, take us home.
Going back to our home, our wonderful home where you can keep us afloat is over at the patreon.com/theculturednerd. We appreciate so much all of our wonderful patrons. We appreciate all of their patronage. Thank you for all of the money that you throw us our way. Thank you very much. #DadStream, always a dad stream. Here's our wonderful fathers and mothers and kids that keep us afloat here. Thank you so much, all of our Patreon supporters. Your host was Taylor Murphy. Your co-host was Michael Santel. Our logo was by Jose Navarro, and our intro was by Taylor Murphy and Jay Stu. Please, if you are watching this on YouTube, please like, comment, subscribe, all of those fun things. If you are not already subscribed to the channel, please do so. Question of the week: what are your hopes, dreams, and speculations for the DCEU? What do you want to see in this new universe? What are your hopes? What are your fears? Put them all down below. I'm Michael Santel. He's been Taylor Murphy, and we'll see all you kids and cats next time.
I just want to address real fast that one of the comments that came through while you were reading that was Taylor dressed up as Cable for Halloween with a baby Bjorn. It was the best idea ever. I think that's a fantastic idea. That would be a lot of fun.
I think you would look great. I think it'll take all of maternity leave to make that costume look that good.
I think it would. I think it'd be like a daily endeavor where I'm just constantly like, I'm going to make this look great.
Then we got to end this episode so you can start ordering things from Amazon.
I don't know. Should we do the Sopranos thing and just cut out mid-sentence?